Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. As you guys all know, the new patch has been out for about 2 weeks now, and Infantry has made a huge comeback. Infantry is at its best point in pretty much all of AoE2 history, and today I'm going to be presenting to you guys the strongest strategy of this new patch. I've been playing a ton of 1v1 ranked and playtesting a bunch of different civilizations, trying out the new changes, and most importantly, trying out all of the new infantry strategies that are now made viable. And I think the best one that I've found, and the strongest one that lets you do some serious damage, is the men-at-arms strategy into skirmishers. It's specifically that variation, but I want to firstly talk about men-at-arms in a more holistic view in more general terms. Men-at-arms have been made way stronger for a number of reasons. Let's go through some of their buffs so you can really see how much this unit has been improved over the last patch. They were made 10 food cheaper, so they now sit at 50 food and 20 gold, and that's for militia line onwards. Men-at-arms specifically, so after the upgrade comes in, move much quicker than they used to, and than the current militia. So militia still move at the same pace, but the men-at-arms gets a speed boost when the upgrade kicks in. Supplies has been completely removed, and instead Arson was given in feudal age, and Arson had its cost reduced. So now you have cheaper men-at-arms that perform better, and you have this threat of Arson in feudal age, and you no longer have to worry about paying for supplies if you want to make extended men-at-arms in feudal age. What a crazy set of changes that really boosted the men-at-arms strategy. Now keep in mind, infantry in general is really strong, so even past men-at-arms, champions got a few changes. 200 swordsman upgrade was made cheaper. It's made faster to research. Champion, the same treatment. So there's been a ton of infantry changes, but for this video specifically, to focus on men-at-arms, I've covered the changes that are relevant. Now, what do those changes practically mean? Now, number one, it means that the initial men-at-arm rush became way stronger. Generally speaking, on previous patch, when you went for men-at-arms, you'd go with a 3 men-at-arm rush, you'd pick up the upgrade, and then you kind of run around and try to do damage. Then your opponent would get a counter unit like an archer or a skirm, and because the archer and skirm moves faster than the men-at-arms, he can actually push you away and chase you all the way back to your base and pick apart your men-at-arms. In the worst case scenario, you lose all 3 men-at-arms to a few archers, and in the best case scenario, you're able to run away and only lose some HP and have your men-at-arm rush hurt a little bit. But as you can see, in both these scenarios, you don't really have any more offensive prowess anymore with your initial men-at-arm rush, because you've taken some damage, you've been forced away or forced back from his base, and you no longer have that, aggressive threat. You can't really run around, you can't really hit a different angle. If you don't find damage within the first minute, your men-at-arm rush is rendered practically useless. This completely changed with the new patch. Now your men-at-arms move at the exact same speed as an archer, meaning the men-at-arm cannot chase down the archer and kill it, and the archer cannot chase down the men-at-arm and kill it. It's a very balanced relationship, as it should be. So now the men-at-arm rush is the same way. You'd have the 3 men-at-arms, you attack your opponent, try to find some damage on his vills. You have a better chance of killing a villager because you move faster and you're able to trap the villager a little bit easier. And then past that, if your opponent does the same thing and gets out a couple archers, well, now you have the option to just simply run around his base. He can chase you, but he can't ever catch up to you. So you can get maybe 1 or 2 hits and then you'll be on your way. And since you move at the exact same speed, neither one can force himself onto the other unless a mistake is made. So if you turn around with your men-at-arms and attack the archer and he's not looking, you can actually, close the gap and kill the archer. If he's looking, he'll run away. Same thing for you. If he's chasing you, you just continue running and you take no damage. You can go around and attack your opponent. Your men-at-arms still remain a threat, or you can decide to just run them home. You can run them home and take no damage as you're going back, and then you can prepare a follow-up push. So much more flexibility has been given to the infantry player, and now your men-at-arm rush doesn't feel like some early game cheese that needs to do damage within the first minute or 2. Now it feels like a legit opening that you can pressure your opponent, gain the initiative, and then when counter units hit the field, you can adapt, you can restructure your aggression, you can figure out a different plan to continue pushing with those initial men-at-arms. You don't have to lose them anymore, which is such good game design. And this is the main reason why the initial men-at-arm rush became way stronger, and men-at-arm rushes in general went from being a risky all-in basically strategy to now just a solid, flexible, and consistent opening. But it's not just the men-at-arm rush that became stronger, but it's also the follow-up that has been made easier. Because the men-at-arm cost less food, or the militia in general costs less food, you're actually going to be saving 30 food on your initial 3 militia, initial 3 men-at-arms. That's pretty huge, because in the early game, when affording stuff in a tight build order is quite difficult, having that extra 30 food lets you squeeze in an extra villager, no idle time, lets you squeeze in the wood upgrade, lets you squeeze in that extra spearman. It lets you do a few things that before you weren't able to do, and it just makes the build order a little bit cleaner. The next thing that's been made possible that I would never have recommended in the past is actually adding in more men-at-arms for follow-up and not needing supplies supplies is what made this possible. Beforehand, if you wanted to add in more men-at-arms, number one, the unit was just not as good because of the reasons I already mentioned, but also you need to pick up supplies to start making them at a cheaper cost. If not, you're paying the full 60 food, 20 gold that they used to cost. Now you don't need supplies and they only cost 50 food and 20 gold. And the problem with supplies was that you had to sink 150 resources, so 75 food and 75 gold into that upgrade before even making a single unit, which would only pay off in after 10 militia were created following the pickup of supplies. That is just way too slow of a payback to justify in the feudal age, and the 60 food up front without getting supplies was also really hard to chalk up per men-at-arm. Now it feels much more fair. 50 food straight up, 20 gold, and you don't need to pick up supplies, makes it so adding it in men-at-arms feels like a legit possibility, and in most cases it's actually quite a good play. And what makes this feel so natural is that nowadays you're more likely to keep your initial 3 men-at-arm alive, as we discussed earlier. So now you're going to have your initial 3, then you can add 1 or 2 more, and suddenly you have 5 men-at-arm on the field. 5 men-at-arm lets you do some serious damage. And with this next point, you're really going to see the picture come together. Arson being available in feudal age, that's where the real damage is going to be dealt. It's a relatively cheap upgrade coming in at 75 food and 25 gold, so you don't really feel as in debt when you pick it up compared to something like supplies, and its effect is immediate. Supplies needed so much time to pay off, whereas Arson comes in and right away gives you the extra +2 damage against buildings. Men-at-arms naturally have a high attack, they naturally have an attack bonus versus buildings, and grabbing Arson on top of that just really doubles down on their strengths, leaving you with a very solid full feudal threat with infantry. How cool is that? Adding in some men-at-arms, picking up Arson, and breaking down your opponent's structures in feudal age, and this is for the first time ever in Age of Empire 2 history pretty much, where we have infantry be a real threat as a full feudal strategy. Not just a few in early game, not just a few into walls, not just a drush fast castle, but a full feudal men-at-arm rush that can actually break buildings, take down towers, and who knows, potentially even take out the town center. That's obviously a little far-fetched, but that could be a real threat to build up into if you start having some success in mid to late feudal with your men-at-arms. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video that men-at-arm to skirm was the specific best variation. Why is that, you might ask? Completely logical. I mean, you could think men-at-arm to archer was the most popular strategy back in the day, a couple years ago maybe, let's say. Men-at-arm to scout seems solid, men-at-arms into more men-at-arms seems fine. What about men-at-arm to skirm? What makes that so good? Well, the reason is the natural counter to men-at-arms is actually the archer line. So if you go for men-at-arms and your opponent reacts with archers to try to pick you up and try to, fend off the aggression, you can just switch into skirms and keep that pressure going. Now, the archer follow-up isn't as good as it was last patch because now, as I mentioned earlier, you can't chase down the men-at-arms and kill them off, but it's still the best way to push the men-at-arms away from your base and prevent them from killing your villagers or breaking down your houses or walls. But if you go for the skirmisher follow-up, you now can consistently pressure your opponent despite him being on archers. You let the men-at-arms do the heavy lifting and attack the houses or buildings, or even like the archer range can go down with a few men-at-arms, and then you keep your skirms with fletching behind so that if he brings out the archers and tries to defend his range, you can actually pick them apart with the skirms. And if he's not walled, you can just run into his base. Men-at-arms would take out pretty much everything. They take out villagers, spearmen, anything an archer player can have, and then the skirms can deal with the archers so that your men-at-arms have full freedom to do all the damage in the world. A very natural mix and a very strong strategy. And as a little bonus for the video, I would just mention here that the men-at-arms skirm strategy is solid throughout the entire game. I would call it the infantry skirm composition, and it's good all the way up until Imperial Age. Think about it. Men-at-arms skirm is good in feudal, longsword elite skirm is good in castle age, and champion elite skirm is really good in Imperial Age. This strategy has just been made really strong across the board, and I think starting it out with a feudal age push and then leading into the same composition in castle age, just have to pick up upgrades, is a very natural flow of the game that lets you pressure with the same composition and not need to do a transition. So this build order and this strategy actually has a really strong punch and a very reasonable follow-up, which I absolutely love. If this strategy died out after castle age or after feudal age and you have to switch to knights or something else, then it wouldn't be as good. But the fact that you can stay on the same composition, just pick up the upgrades like gambesons and armor and bodkin and whatnot, the push still feels like it has life. It has some flavor going into castle age onwards, which feels incredibly strong in practice. And I guess the last thing to talk about is whether he goes for scouts in feudal age. You might think that scouts in feudal age can be a really solid counter, especially if your game plan is to go men-at-arms to skirm, but it turns out even if he goes scouts, you can just mix in 1 or 2 spearmen with the men-at-arms and it becomes extremely difficult for him to take a proper engagement. Men-at-arms are already strong against scouts in in melee combat, but if you mix in a spear, it's really hard for the scouts to isolate the spear, kill it fast, and then focus down the men-at-arms. What's likely to happen is the scouts engage, one or two of them attack the spear, and the rest are just stuck fighting the men-at-arms, and the spear is allowed to get multiple hits off in the fight, which deals some serious damage, leading to the infantry ultimately winning the engagement, or at least taking a cost-effective trade. And so really it feels like men-at-arms gets you the map control and gets you the initiative no matter what your opponent goes for, and it feels like it doesn't have any downside. Is it broken? Is it overpowered? Absolutely not. And I can't believe I'm saying this so soon, but I truly feel like this strategy has some downsides and it has some counterplay available, because let's be honest, men-at-arms is still a reasonable investment. Yes, it's been made cheaper, but 3 militia plus the men-at-arm upgrade is still quite an expensive pickup. So it does have some counterplay, and I don't feel like it's broken at all. I truly believe that the devs found a perfect sweet spot to make infantry viable, strong, fun to play, viable and consistent, but not overpowered. It's mind-blowing. It's the perfect balance, and I really feel like whether I'm against infantry or whether I'm playing infantry, I have a chance to win, and if I make a few mistakes, I have a very real chance to lose. It feels so perfect as far as a balance between winning and losing with this strategy. And for what it's worth, on Patreon, I have a guide video of how to do the men-at-arm into Skirm strategy, as well as other men-at-arm variations in color-coded PDF, and I have a video like 30 minutes long of how to beat the men-at-arm into Skirm strategy and men-at-arm strategies in general. So really, I'm showing good tips and tricks for both sides of the same coin. Whether you want to play the strategy or whether you want to play against it and be prepared in the new patch, you'll find what you need on Patreon with the exclusive guides and videos to help you guys get better and stay ahead of the competition. If you guys want to support my work and also get the best tools for the new patch, I highly recommend you check the Patreon and catch those videos for yourself and see exactly what you need to do to beat the meta or play the meta. So in conclusion, the new patch really spiced things up, and this feels like the first time in a long time where infantry is actually viable and it's quite a consistent opening. The men-at-arms into Skirm strategy feels like the strongest strategy of the new patch, but it also feels like it comes with a good amount of investment. So even if it's a strong approach, it does have some downsides that you can take advantage of if you're a smart player and if you're well prepared to face it. If it catches you off guard and you're not prepared to face it, you will lose very easily to this men-at-arm opening because it is just so strong at killing early vills and snowballing the advantage. Obviously, it's still early in the new patch, so things can change, but I've played like almost 100 games on new patch at the highest level, so I feel like I have a pretty good read of the meta and a pretty good read of the situation, and I'm here to pass on the things that I've learned to you guys via YouTube videos and via Patreon as well. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to check out Patreon and Twitch for the live streams and the guides. Links to both in the description below. Thank you all for the support, watching my videos and checking me out on other platforms, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.